So Shaddi and I are talking about 659-667 King Street, and Shaddi just updated me that the phase one has come back clean. There are no apparent sources of pollution on the site. And Shaddi's expecting that this project, this potential project for multi-res building will be site plan approved by the end of 2021, which is pretty exciting. The appraised value for the building, the existing building and the land is somewhere between 3.75 million and 4.5 million today. And after the site plan is approved at the end of the year, that's going to jump by quite a bit. It might actually double. Is that right?
Yeah, it would go to 6.75 to 7.5.
Yeah.
Based on 45 to 55,000.
Yeah, based on an appraiser's view of it. So if you were going to buy it from Mike, probably now is the time to do it, not in January.
I've explained this to him.
Yeah, because I mean, if you were going to pay $7.5 million for this, Shaddi, as your coach and as your friend, I would probably say no to the deal. That's a retail buy. And none of my clients buy retail. If you do that,
including this one,
and my dad will come and haunt you from heaven. I mean, he just would not approve of that. He was also a wholesale buyer, and he certainly taught me that's the same thing. So look, I'm just going to make up some numbers on how the project might work. I mean, I thought about it. I read your agenda, so let's just think about how it might work. So what I think you might do is you would have an agreement of the purchase and sale with Mike, and let's say the purchase price was $4 million, just as a number, and you were going to give Mike, just as an example, about 25% down, so $1 million down in cash, and Mike would then have a $3 million seller take back mortgage, and typically on that you would have a 3-year term. Probably because he's a friend of the family, you would ask for the first 12 months might be interest free, and then for the last 24 months, maybe 3 or 3.5% interest only. The seller take back would have to be a second mortgage, and it would have to be postponable to bona fide construction financing, because the 150 unit building, which is what I think you're looking at.
Yeah,
it's going to cost tens of millions of dollars, and so he has to be willing to postpone to that. And the reason I use the term bona fide, it means you can't put a mortgage in front of him and then run off to Las Vegas.
Yeah,
and spend it. So it has to be for actual work done on the site. Now, the question that you might ask is, first of all, where is the $1 million going to come from in cash? I mean, you could, check your couch tonight and see if you've got $1 million in your couch, or empty out your piggy bank, go to your family for $1 million. But typically what people, entrepreneurs that I coach in real estate, what they do is they do one of a few different options. Certainly one of the options that we've talked about for the project would be to find a group of investors who want to participate.
So let's if we can base it, Bruce, base it on myself being able to come up with $1 million. It should be enough to do in
well, I'm not really worried about the $1 million as much as I am worried about the additional equity that you're going to require to get the project finished, because that's non-trivial. And in addition to that, one of the things that you said, at least in your written agenda, was your concern that this project would be a really big project and might stretch yourself a little too far. Yeah. So if you just be patient with me for another 5 minutes or so, let me just sketch out what I think might be an alternative plan.
Sure.
So, I mean, if you told me you were going to put the $1 million down, get the site plan approved and flip it to somebody else, wholesale it sort of to somebody else, I'm okay with that. I mean, that's a 6-month or 12-month exit. But what you said is you would like to actually build it.
Explore it, yeah.
At least explore it.
Have a good look.
So let's just think it through. You've got a 150 unit building. What will it cost to build this then per unit?
Hard and soft?
Everything, except for the land. Financing, hard costs, soft costs. Is it 200,000 a door, 300,000 a door, 400,000 a door? I mean, what is the number?
Yeah, I was looking at it more at, so I haven't pro forma the whole thing out yet, but I mean, we're at 200 a foot, 12,000, sorry. Yeah, so I mean, 200 a foot hard cost at 120,000 feet would be 24 million hard cost. If I take,
How many square feet is the building in total?
120,000.
Okay.
And again, not pro forma out yet, but if I put, 5% of that on for consultant, that's another 1.2 million, so 25.2, plus carrying costs on top of that. So for the purpose of the conversation, 30.
Yeah, I was going to guess 30 or 35 million. So if it's 30 million, that's 200,000 per door, hard and soft, right? So plus the land. All right. So
Yeah.
I think it's 30 million plus 4 million for the land. So it's about, I'm just going to go with 34 million, including the land. And you divide that by 150 units, you get, I don't know, what do you get? Well, you got your calculator there. 34 million divided by 150 is how much?
226,000.
Yeah.
So 227.
And I have to tell you, if you could do, a 150 unit apartment building for $226,000 a door, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Shaddi, are you tired today?
Oh no, why? Why do you say
you
that?
look a little tired.
Oh no,
okay.
thinking.
So let's just have some fun with the numbers right now. So we got $226,000 per door all in. That's our cost. And what do you think you can rent these things for?
I would say conservatively 1,500 a month.
Yeah, it's not going to be enough.
On that, well, that should get us to. Yeah, I can see that's low. So I did 1,500 a month times 150 times 12, and I took 70% of that, so a 30% expense ratio, and a 5 cap, which I think is conservative across the board.
What
That's
did you get?
37,800,000.
Yeah. So if you told me that you could only rent them for $1,500 a month, I don't think the project will be as interesting as I had hoped.
So I would go. I'd be comfortable going above that, looking at an average. But in thinking back between the 1 and the 2 bedrooms and the location and what things are renting for now in town, like new condo projects are going for 600 and change square foot. 1 bedrooms are in the 17 and change right now.
Exactly. So what do you think the average rent might be?
Yeah. So let's go. 1,800.
All right. So we're going to say 1,800 and do your thing. So 1,800 times 150 units times 0.7. What do you get?
2,268,000.
2,268,000 is your net operating income, right?
That's with a 30% expense.
Yeah, that's your net operating income. So you've got 2.268 million, your net operating income, and divide that by 34 million. What do you get?
So 6.7.
Yeah. So you at $1,800 a month. This is without any animation. You haven't added the tech packages. You haven't added the storage space. You haven't added any parking revenues. You haven't added any, these workshops that I'm so fond of, and you are as well, in the basement. You haven't done any animation. You haven't thought about those townhouses that you'll have along King Street, you know, 8 or 10 townhouses, which will go for a lot more. So you haven't done any animation, and you're producing a project on these numbers with a 6.7 cap rate. I think you should ask your appraiser friend what a selling cap rate would be. And if he tells you 5%, I highly doubt that. For a brand new project in this location, I'm guessing the cap rate's going to be 4 or 4.5%.
Yeah,
I told you that
the 5 is conservative. The CBRE cap rate supports under 5.
What do they support?
I'll pull up the most recent one, and then on the appraiser side of it, the kind of 225 a door range. So Q4 2019. Yes, multifamily high-rise A was 4 to 4.25.
So let's use 4.25%. All right. So take the net operating income that you just calculated, which I think will be higher, but take
2,268 again.
Yeah, 2,268 divided by 0.0425.
So that's 53,365,000.
All right. So if you could do, just bear with me, if you could do the project for $34 million, and I'm not saying you would sell it, but if you could sell it for $53 million, means you're making about 19 million bucks.
Yep.
So, you know, that's the potential for profit. Now, there's two ways to look at the end, the end goal. One would be to sell it to a REIT, you know, or to sell it to Homestead, or, you know, somebody like, or Minto, whoever wants to buy it for 53 million bucks, put $19 million in your jeans. The other possibility is that you finish it, you populate it. 2 years after you finish it, you get a fair market value of 53 million bucks, and you refinance it. You pull out probably, you know, $10 million in tax-free cash. All right. Mm-hmm. So one possibility is to sell it. The other possibility is to refinance it. So at the end of the day, you know that the project's likely to be successful based on these numbers. So, yeah. So what you're probably going to need is, you know, you're probably going to be able to get a construction loan of, you know, probably 70% loan to value.
Yep.
So let's say you got a 70% loan to value, and we've got a $30 million hard and soft cost. It means you need 30% has to be equity on 30 million, which is 9 million bucks. Right? Mm-hmm. That's quite a bit. So it wasn't the million that I'm worried about. It's the million that you put down on the land, and then it's the next million that you're going to spend on getting your site plan approved, getting all your design drawings are really expensive, you know, working drawings, shop drawings, tendering, bringing all the team together. I mean, that's another million and another million. So I think to do this, you probably need $10 million in equity.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yep.
So did you have a plan for that?
I have a plan that I don't love, and Mike is aware of this, but the value.
And the plan was, you're going to share it with me?
Yeah. So what was appealing to me about this, fully understand what you're saying about equity required. If we walk a building through site plan approval, that we have a $7 million valuation on, which becomes equity towards it. You know, hypothetically speaking, if I put $1 million in that gets paid towards Mike, that takes us to say $6 million, and then that would be a $4 million. Well, we'd probably put a little bit more in than that, but in this scenario, $4 million mezz debt, second position, agreement to stand still behind a bank is my high level plan for this.
Okay, so let's assume that, you know, but Mike will want a second mortgage on the property. He's not just going to take a, well, maybe he would take a seller take back, which is just a loan.
Yeah, yeah, I see what you, I
Because
see
I
what
mean,
you,
if you had a property that was free and clear, site plan approved, that was 7 million, then you know the equity gap is probably 2 million.
yeah.
So if you gave Mike 1 million and then he just took back some, you know, like a promissory note for the rest of it, then you would
Oh,
show
no,
to a
sorry,
lender.
I understand what you're saying there. My plan contemplates Mike remaining as a partner at this point.
It does, okay,
Yeah.
but
In that scenario, which we've had the conversation about, and we don't
and
know.
he okay. So if he's going to remain as a partner, then that's a little bit different. So what he might do then is he might roll the land into a new corporation.
Yeah,
And what he might do is there's a thing called a butterfly transaction, which allows an owner of property to move the ownership without crystallizing any capital gains. Don't ask me to explain it because I'm an engineer, not an accountant, but your accountant will know how to do
yeah.
that. Most
Is
CAs,
a Section 85 tax election, does that ring about
you know,
part of
like I
it?
said, I'm an engineer. You're way beyond me. But so anyway, let's assume he can move the property into a new corporation, and it doesn't trigger a capital gain. And then what you could do is you could buy an interest in that corporation. I assume, are you contemplating a 50-50 partnership with him?
That's what I'd be
All
looking
right.
at. Yeah.
So we have a $4 million piece of property that goes into a company. The company's balance sheet now has a $4 million piece of property on it, free and clear. Then Mike can sell you, either his shares, 50% of the shares that he has in that company, for say $1 million, right? And then you own 50% of this company, and he owns 50%, and it still has 4 million in it. But what might be smarter is if the company issued from its treasury new shares to you, for which you paid $1 million. And probably you would have to pay, in order to pass the smell test, you probably have to pay 2 million for it. Because that's 50% of whatever the value is there, you know, you can't just give it to you. So you could pay $1 million in cash and just have, just owe the company $1 million, and it
Yeah.
can just sit out there as a shareholder debt, right? So now,
Well,
now the company has a $4 million property. This might work better. Has a $4 million property with $1 million of cash on its balance sheet, and you own half of that, and you have some additional, shareholder loans. So the company actually would, I think, maybe I'm double counting here because I'm really bad at accounting, but I think, Shaddi, because it would have a call on you somewhere down the road for another $1 million, it might actually show on the balance sheet that the company's worth $6 million now.
Okay.
Because it has $4 million worth of property, $1 million of cash in its treasury, and $1 million owing from a shareholder, on a non-recourse basis sometime down the road. Interest
I
rate.
think that million cash would have to make it to Mike, though, in this transaction.
Well, that may well be. So what you could do is you could do a combination. You could buy $1 million worth of his shares, and you could buy $1 million worth of treasury shares. His you pay for in cash, and the company, you just give them a piece of paper, a promissory note. And that second $1 million will actually never be paid by you. If the company does well, and I expect it would, then whatever profits are generated by this company somehow down the road, it would repay that. Your share of the proceeds, whether it's dividends or some other form of compensation, would go to repay that debt.
Yeah.
So it would only cost you $1 million to buy 50% of it. The other $1 million would actually be paid for by the project. So you could do a combination if you're clear on that. Now you've got a piece of land that's worth 4 million, and you've got $1 million worth of shareholder indebtedness to the company. So that will show up as, I think, as an asset. So you'll have a $5 million company, and you'll own it 50%, and Mike will own the other 50%. Okay, so that's fine. And then after the site plan, the land goes to a $7 million value, and you still have $1 million owing from you. So now it's worth 8 million. But you're still going to need some additional equity, because there's going to be $1 million worth of engineering and architect fees and a bunch of other stuff, and another $1 million when it comes time to finance this. So you're probably still going to need some additional cash. So where was that going to come from?
I haven't got that far.
Okay, because right now we have two investors, you and Mike, and I'm not sure you want any more.
Yeah, so that in this scenario with Mike in it, though, the second position would be open for a mezz debt style loan.
You could do that. That's going to be pretty expensive, though, I think.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, in some ways, debt, Shaddi, is less expensive than equity, because even if you paid 10 or 12% for a second position on it, that's still, you know, that's still pretty. That's less than an equity player. Like, an equity player is going to want anywhere from 18 to 24% internal rate of return on his or her money. You know, that's a typical investor. They want, you know, they want 8% on their funds, and then they want to make a bunch on the equity too. So it might be okay to do it in a second, but I'm still not comfortable that there's enough cash here to get you through to the end. So there are some other alternatives we've talked about already. And I'm not saying you should do this, but you could pre-sell this building.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there'd be people, there'd be REITs and others who would be delighted to pick it up for 50 million bucks, turnkey, right? You deliver us this building with these this pro forma, and we'll give you 50 million bucks or $53 million, and here's a non-refundable check for 5 million bucks.
Yeah,
and that $5 million is secured by a second mortgage on the property, just in case you screw up. They can always foreclose on it and take over the project. But if you want to keep it, you and Mike want to keep it, then that's a different story.
Yeah, the shortfall there, if we're still on the 2 million, the I guess the three sources I had thought of, and the REIT one is interesting, but the mezz debt style, haven't been a part of this, haven't done one, want to learn more about it, but a GPLP structure, I don't know if that would make sense here.
What kind of structure?
General partner, limited partner. Yeah,
limited partnerships are okay, but they're kind of you know, to me, putting a limited partnership together means that you're going to have an offering memorandum, and you could end up with 50 or 100 investors, right? That's a lot of work.
I'd use a broker at that point, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, but those brokers, they're like Shylock. You remember the Merchant of Venice? They're going to come after you for a pound of flesh and maybe 10 pounds of flesh.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Oh, they're sharp. When I did the Ottawa Senators capital raise, which was about 485 million bucks, we used CIBC Wood Gundy to raise to do a limited partnership for us. And on the day of closing, the guys from CIBC Wood Gundy come to me and say, "Oh, by the way, you know, we were charging you a $2 million fee for this. We'd like an extra $1 million."
Really?
Yeah. And this was like an hour before closing with the National Hockey League. They absolutely, I mean, these guys they're the same on Wall Street as they are on Bay Street. They're sharks, and they literally they put a gun to my head, and my colleague Randy Sexton wanted to, you know, he's a former hockey player, and he wanted to, you know, punch him out. I said, Randy, we can't punch people out. This would be a bad plan. And I said, okay. So I gave him an extra $1 million, and we closed the transaction about an hour and a half later.
Did you, last time you ever dealt with them?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, but they literally stuck us up. It was like, it was no different than a highway robbery. And it's a good thing this is being recorded, but it's unlisted, because I don't want to get sued by CIBC. but it was literally robbery. So I mean, just as your coach and friend, I wouldn't really go down that road. You're going to have 50 or 100 partners, and they'll drive you crazy.
Yeah.
So a general partner limited partnership is one way of raising equity. The mezzanine financing is another, and you know, and you don't have to sell the building to the REIT. What you could do is you could you know, sell 50% of the building to a REIT, and you and Mike could hold the other 50%. That
Oh,
would be
okay.
more. That would be more exciting.
Okay.
Because
They
then instead of getting $1 or $2 million, and you know you're struggling, you know, with little tiny investors who are putting $100,000 in or $200,000 in, and there's 50 of them, or however many there are. Maybe if it's $50,000, you know, you end up with like 150 of the damn things. That's troublesome. But to me, you could sell a REIT on a 50% ownership interest at somewhere between your cost of 34 million and the retail price of 53 million. And you kind of pick a number in there, and that could be real money for you and for Mike too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the direction I would probably go in. I like the idea of Mike staying in if he's prepared to. I like the idea of him getting $1 million. I like the idea of you owning 50% of that new company, you know. I really like the idea of you hitting up a REIT after the site, as you get very close to the site plan approval, because by then you'll have, you know, an $8 million company, a wonderful building that by then you'll have a pretty good handle on the total cost. You know, you want to have a builder that's going to give you a GMP, right?
Yeah, so I'm actually on my list of kind of due diligence here. There's well, I got in the woodworking days, I got to know all the builders very well and have good relationships with them. But there's one that I'm going to. We've been trying to get together for a beer and go over the plan, and I would like them. They're capable of handling a project this size.
Who are they?
The one that I was going to call is called Jackman Construction.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
They're
Local though, right?
They're local. They're
Yeah.
newer. He's a little older than me, probably early 40s.
Yeah. What's
Aggressive.
his first name?
Eric Jackman.
Eric, yeah. Is that with a K?
Jack, yeah.
Okay.
Does that ring a bell? The
Yeah,
company?
I think so. Eric is with a K though. ERIK, I think.
I think he's a C.
It's a C. Okay.
I think he's a C.
All right. Fair enough.
But,
So yeah,
my plan with that at least is I'd like
he has to be able to not only provide you with a guaranteed maximum price, he has to be able to be insured and bonded for that.
Yeah, he can.
Because otherwise, you and Mike can go broke.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, but I really like the idea of hiring a project manager, a development manager, and you're going to be the development manager, so you're hiring yourself. So Shaddi's the development manager. You've got a project manager, you've got a general contractor, you've got an architect. We talked about this, and all of them are on fixed price contracts with some incentives.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Remember that? Incentives to finish on time, incentives to be careful about change orders and cost overruns, and other kinds of incentives as well. So I think, yeah. So I'm just going to write it down. So the land comes into the company at 4 million. Mike here sells 50% to Shaddi for, actually he's selling 25% to you, Shaddi, for 1 million. And then the Treasury is issuing 25% ownership to Shaddi for another $1 million, but that's just a paper debt.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is cash.
I was going to see if there's, I mean, if the minutia details here, but as a development manager, if you can count some of that as equity towards the additional $1 million in there too, without taking a.
Yeah. So a development manager, we've talked about this. So a development manager, which is you, should make anywhere from 1.5 to 2.5 points.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So let's say it's
on total project or on
the total project. So on 34 million, that would be about $680,000.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you felt comfortable, you would roll that into your $1 million.
Yeah.
All right. Or maybe half of it. I don't know. But because you do need some cash, Shaddi. Like we talked about it. you shared with me, the sort of your take-home pay, and for
Yeah.
somebody at your age with your skill set and your track record, you're at around $170,000 a year or something like that, and it should be closer to $700,000 a year.
Mhm.
At this age and stage. When you're my age at 68, you won't earn necessarily as much as you do when you're 30s, 40s, 50s.
Yeah, fair, for
In
sure.
60s, you tend to slow down a little bit. You can still earn a good living, but it's not quite the same as being 35 or
Yeah,
45 or
I
even
can I
55.
can imagine more
So these
risk.
are the peak earning years for you. So, so some of that you probably should reserve, because you want to have a lifestyle that where you're not saying, oh God, I got another cell phone bill here. How do I pay it? Right?
Yeah,
That I don't think is a good idea. So you might not roll the whole thing, and you might decide to put in half as sweat equity and half as cash.
yeah,
All right,
yeah. I've
so
been,
something like that. But
yeah, I've been,
you would pay yourself close to $700,000 as a development manager. And trust me, if I had one of my pals who's worked with me as a development manager do it, you would pay him $600,000 or $700,000 to do it or more. So you might as well get Shaddi to do it, because he'll do a better job.
yeah.
All right, so the land goes into the company for $4 million. Shaddi gets 25% from Mike for $1 million. The Treasury issues the other 25% to you of shares, and now you're at, and then you just have it just sits on the books of the company, and it'll be repaid out of whatever dividends come later. Then the fair market value goes to, say, $7 million after site plan. And then at that point, I think you could sell 50% of the company to a REIT. And I think at that point, you can issue them preferred shares, which they'll prefer. You understand why they would prefer that?
No.
So you know the difference between common shares and preferred shares, right?
Generally, yeah,
Yeah.
but
So common shares, you and Mike would own, say, Class A shares, which are common shares, and these are voting shares.
okay,
The REIT, at least most of the REITs I deal with, would rather have preferred shares. Preferred shares have a dividend protection. So let's say the company does well and it decides to pay a dividend. You can declare a dividend for the preferred shares and not for the common shares.
okay,
But you can't declare a dividend for the common shares without including the preferred shares.
okay,
They're
okay.
preferred.
Yeah,
Okay. And if something goes wrong with the company, if for some reason it's wound up, whatever money is left over after paying all your debt goes first to the preferred shareholders. Now, so the good news from the REIT's point of view is they own half of this asset. Hopefully it'll be a wonderful asset. I'm sure it will be. But they're protected with preferred shares, but they don't vote. So if you want to have a good relationship with somebody and they don't vote, it's pretty easy to have a good relationship because they don't have a say in anything.
yeah,
That is true, by the way, of limited partners as well. Limited partners do not have a vote. Only the general partner, which would be you and Mike, would have a vote. But to me, this is a better structure. Instead of having to make 50 sales or 100 sales or 150 sales and having 150 partners potentially, you have one.
yeah, yeah. The third option that I want to bring up though too is we're throughout my portfolio and the families, but we're not extremely leveraged. I would say we're probably sitting in the 55 to 60 range, and that would be potentially an option too, is some refinancing to pull out funds for that. Or some activities between now and then, like the other one on our agenda today that I
Can I
sent
ask you
over.
a question about that, Shaddi?
Yeah.
Rather than leveraging the family portfolio, um, you know, it, this project to me is a precursor of 10 more like this.
Mm-hmm.
And you wouldn't want to leverage the family portfolio for every project you do for the next decade. So I'm not saying, I mean, if you decided that's the direction you wanted to go, you could certainly leverage the family portfolio to become, they can play the role of the REIT.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, the nice thing about having a REIT, like, you know, I told you about what Dream REIT did with the Zibby project in Ottawa.
No, I don't think so.
Are you
That's not
familiar
right.
with the Zibby project?
No.
All right, I'll share this with you. Are you familiar with Dream REIT?
Yeah.
Okay. You know, let's see how they're doing.
How do you spell Zibby?
I'll show it to you in a sec.
Okay.
So let's first see how they're doing. So Dream REIT is, and their shares are they're holding up, I guess. At least more recently. Let's have a look at 1 year.
Yeah, I just looked at that.
Yeah, so Dream has been as low as $24 and as high as 36, and they're now trading around 20. So they're, you know, I mean, look at what COVID did to them. Can you see this on the screen here?
Yeah.
It reduced their share price by about a third. There you
They
go.
were at an all-time high prior to COVID, though.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, yeah, they
Actually,
were
went all-
way up there, but that sucks. All right, so here's Zibby, the project. It's in Ottawa, and it's really quite the project. Here it is. Here, I don't know. Can you see that? Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is right downtown. You can walk from here to the parliamentary precinct, which is, you know, if you're close to the parliamentary precinct, that's amazing. So what this is, these are the old Domtar lands. So these lands here are right in the heart of the Ottawa River. They're between the province of Ontario and the province of Quebec. About half of the projects in Ontario, half is in Quebec, which makes it a little bit more complicated. You've got the Algonquin people to deal with, the two provinces, the federal government, the National Capital Commission. So if you think anything you're doing in terms of planning is difficult, this is really, really difficult. So what happened here was Jonathan Westeindy. He's a little bit older than you, but similar kind of guy. You know, he's fit, he's really smart. He runs a company called Windmill Developments. And one of his employees was bicycling across this bridge. He lives in Chelsea, Quebec, and on a nice summer day, bicycling to work. And he looked at all the industrial buildings that were here. And he said, this is a most fantastic site, maybe, it's certainly one of the better sites in Canada. And it's just, you know, it's heavily polluted, and it's been used for paper making for, you know, probably 100 years. So Jonathan Westeindy got busy, and he went to see the Domtar people. That's a big paper making company. And they agreed to sell it to his company. And his company was successful, but it's pretty small compared to the project. This is about a $2 billion project. So Jonathan came to see me, and he asked me the same question you just did. Well, how do I finance it? And he has a well-to-do Dutch family as well. But I said, this is a little bit too big to, you know, just do on your own, in my opinion. And I don't want you to overextend yourself and go broke doing it, which happens a lot. Most of these projects like this, the people who make the money are the second owners, not the first ones.
Yeah, yeah.
And I tell you this because I don't want that to be the case for you, Shaddi. So anyway, so he went to Toronto, and he spent time with the head of Dream REIT, this guy here, Michael Cooper. And what they did was Jonathan had to put in $5 million of cash. And, you know, and this was the Mad Rivers financing that I talked about before. Dream put in the other $5 million in cash. So they had $10 million in equity. And then they needed about another $1 billion to develop this. And all of that financing came from Dream. None of it came from Jonathan, zero. Okay. So Jonathan and Windmill own 50% of this project, and Dream owns the other 50%. But Jonathan put in $5 million of equity, Dream put in $5 million in equity, and Dream provided the rest of the financing. So the neat thing about doing a deal with a REIT is that you and Mike, once you have this new company, can get significant money for the work that you've done up front, so real cash.
Yeah.
And if you do a deal with the REIT, they'll provide the financing. You don't have to go to some Shylock. Maybe I should stop using that term, but you don't have to go to some blood-sucking lender who will ask you for 12% and 4% fees, and and do what CIBC Gundy did to me and stick me up at the last minute for money, or you. And so they could provide and they would prefer to provide the financing as well. So you could make real money doing that.
In scenarios like that, does the REIT typically take over the management of the asset at the end of it?
Oh, well, no, that depends. In this case, because these are all condos, I wanted Jonathan in the REIT. If we were doing this deal today, Shaddi, the REIT, I'm sure Dream would have paid more attention to this, because at that time, they weren't going to. It's all condos, and I'm not a big condo fan. You know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I wanted them to do was, I'm fine with them selling, I don't know how many units this is. It wouldn't surprise me if it's 1,000 units. Maybe it's 2,000. I don't remember. But I'm okay with them selling 1,000 units to, that's their cash engine. But what I wanted them to do was, I wanted them to keep many of the apartment buildings for their own portfolio. And then I explained to both the guys at Dream and to Mr. Westindy, to Jonathan, that we can do the non-partnership partnership model, so that if they produce 10 really great, or maybe 15 really great apartment buildings here, maybe half of them are condo buildings and they just sell them off, that's fine. And the other half, they can, at the end of the project, Jonathan could own 5 of them, and Dream could own 5 of them with no mortgages against them.
Yeah.
And that's the non-partnership partnership. So that was here. You only on King Street, you only got one project. But if you had 5 buildings on the project, you might sell 2 or 3 of them and keep 1 or 2 of them. And in theory, you could have one for the REIT, one for Shaddi, and one for Mike. In theory, I suppose.
Yeah.
So they didn't do that. So I think the entire project is condominiumized. The one exception to that, though, I'm pretty sure that they did decide. They did commercial at grade. There's a lot of commercial here at grade. I can't remember exactly how much, but a lot. And they're going to keep that. So they will have some ongoing income from it. And on that, Dream is going to do the management. They'll do the property management. That was a negotiation, and I think Jonathan lost that battle.
Okay.
But everything's a negotiation, and certainly for you, because you're local, I would want you to keep the property. If I were running Dream REIT or any of these other REITs in Winnipeg or in Ottawa or Montreal or Toronto, I would want you to keep the property management. You're on site, you're there. If I bring in people from outside, they won't know the market anywhere near as well as you do. And they won't know anything about animation.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm pretty sure if we made a pitch, you and I made a pitch, and Mike made a pitch, if you wanted me involved, to a REIT, we could probably get significant upfront monies for you. We could probably get the financing, probably end up with 50% ownership for you and Mike, and probably keep the property management. And we would just say to them, look, Shaddi and Mike and their coach have some ideas on how to take that $1,800 a month and maybe turn it into $2,000 or even $2,100 or $2,200 a month, which they won't be able to do.
Yeah.
So I would probably go in that direction.
Yeah.
And there's enough on the table there, Shaddi, between some cash that you could put together, your development management fees, the increase in value that you're going to cause. But you do have to crystallize this with an agreement with Mike.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I have done in the past is I have done, letters of intent, which are, 1 or 2 pages long. And what you might consider doing is I'll send you a couple of copies of things that I've done on things that are similar to this. And you could, if you wanted to, you could sort of change it and send it back to me, and I'll do the final edit. And then you could sit down with Mike. This is not something you send to him by email, right?
Sorry?
This is not something you send to Mike by email.
What, the letter of intent?
No, you have to talk him through it.
Oh, I know. No,
I
there's a
know
long.
you know this stuff, but I have to make sure, because I had a client today out in Calgary. He's doing a deal for a major trailer park out there. Oh, they call them mobile home parks now. You know, and he was just going to send the letter of intent, which we did, which is pages, by email. I said, oh, Paul, don't do that. I mean, you know, people don't,
Yeah.
email has no tonality to it, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, Mike knows that I have interest in it, and there's kind of an unwritten, some kind of compensation here, but I would like to have that conversation. I'm also debating too, just knowing Mike and a friend. I just don't want to. I don't want to look like my intentions are not sincere. I did get involved here because I wanted to help them out. But yeah, I do think that a conversation needs to be had here.
So what I would suggest though is that I'll say, if it's okay with you, I'll send you I'll send you
Yeah,
one letter of intent that I've done similar to this. You change it, send it back to me. I do the final edit. Then you just go and, are you allowed to visit with Mike? Can you go and sit down with him?
oh yeah. We've been in pretty good shape in KW. Not too many cases. So we see each other at least once a week.
Yeah, so I think, but put your ideas down in writing, and you don't even have to give it to him. You just have to bring it with you and say, look, I wrote down a few notes, you know, just to guide it, and can we just talk about it? And you can sit there with him while you have your letter of intent. And if he says, well, I don't really like that, you say, well, what would you suggest? And you can actually write on it, you know, and change it. I wouldn't actually give him the letter of intent until you've talked to him, you've listened to him, you've written some notes on it, because he will make some changes to it. And you say,
Yeah.
okay, listen, I think I get it. Let me go back and rewrite it. And then you can give it to him.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. That is a process. That's exactly what we do. You know how long it took Jonathan to do the deal with Dream?
How?
It was it's a $2 billion project, a $1.1 billion cost. So they're going to make about 900 million bucks on it. Took 3 weeks. And the reason it took only, it didn't take 3 months. It didn't take 3 years. It took 3 weeks. And the reason is that Jonathan used this kind of iterative process. So
Okay.
we did a letter of intent. He went down to Toronto. He met with the top guy there. They got along well. They both are avid cyclists. And Jonathan's a wonderful athlete. He's in his early 40s now, but he's built like this and he looks good.
Yeah.
So they built a personal rapport like you have with Mike. And Jonathan said, look, I just sketched out a few ideas. And he had a few, color slides that similar to what you saw on the screen here a minute ago. And the Dream people were really excited about it. And so he talked about it, went through it, did not give him the piece of paper, just wrote down notes and said, oh yeah, we can change that. Yeah, I think I could consider that. And well, I'll get back to you. Came back, we rewrote it, and then it went to the lawyers.
Okay. Wow.
3 weeks. That's
Impressive.
pretty good for what is now a $2 billion project.
Yeah. What stage is that one at?
They've got about half of it built.
Okay.
Maybe not quite half yet, but it's a 10-year project.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is probably the most important project in Ottawa. There's 2 or 3 big ones, but this is certainly one of the most important.
The
But
website.
imagine that he's doing a $2 billion project with $5 million of cash.
Yeah.
And, he's going to make about $500 million on it. I don't know what his cap rate or internal rate of return is. When you get to numbers like that, you can stop calculating.
Yeah. Good for him.
Yeah, it is. But that's the kind of thing that I think would work here for you and Mike. And it would take a lot of stress off of you and a lot of stress off Mike. Do you have any connections in Toronto, in the financial district?
We have some. There are definitely some I met from the Riverbank days, but so when we sold Riverbank, we sold to a company called Hip Development in town. And I've gotten to know them, the founder there, Scott, very well. Where we grab a beer every now and then and play around the golf every now and then. But he's very plugged with REITs. And
I would like you to try and put together a target list of REITs in Toronto. How long does
Okay.
it take you to get from Kitchener-Waterloo to Toronto?
We're right downtown Toronto, probably an hour and 15.
Yeah, it's not
Hour.
far for you. For us, it's a lot further. But yeah, I mean, you can always do a Zoom meeting with them.
Yeah.
But you know, I think you should put a target list together. Now, you're a long way away from asking
Yeah.
anybody for anything, but it would be a good. It's very useful to develop your list before you need it.
Yeah.
And what I would recommend is that you get a list of 5 or 6. You don't need 50.
Yeah.
Did I send you the book review I did of Pitch Anything?
No, I don't think so.
So after the call is over, I'm going to send you. I'll send you the sample LOI, and I'll also send you something. I did a book review. A guy by the name of Oren Klaff. He's a Wall Street guy, and he's a prickly guy. But Oren wrote a book. It's not new. It's 2011, and it's called Pitch Anything. And there's some really good stuff in it. I don't know if I have a copy here somewhere. Yeah, I do. Hang on.
Okay.
And it's by Oren Klaff, Pitch Anything. And I think it would be really useful for you to, I did a 25-minute, one of those video trainings that I do just for the people I coach. It's unlisted. But I think it'd be useful for you to watch that video, because this is a guy who has pitched probably billions of dollars worth of these projects to people like these REITs. And he's really good at it.
Okay.
And he's got some very specific things that he mentions. I'll give you an example. He would tell you that when you go into a meeting with, some slides, and you go into it with a letter of intent, that you don't give it to these people. You withhold it, right? Because you want to establish what he calls a power frame. You want to make sure that you don't go to a REIT, sit in a waiting room. The receptionist says, sit over there, and then she takes you to a boardroom and says, Shaddi, sit over there, and then the boss doesn't show up. He sends some analyst in to rape your brain, and you leave there. You're not going to get a deal. He establishes power frames, and he has some other interesting comments that he makes on how to pitch anything. And that's really important when you're dealing with people like Bay Street and Wall Street.
Yeah, that's interesting. I added the book.
I will send it to you. And like I said, it's 25 minutes of your time, but that's something you have to be able to do. For example, you don't sit there at the end of your presentation to Dream REIT or any of the other REITs and say, well, what do you think, huh? You want to do a deal, huh?
Yeah.
He says, okay, so, this would be typical Oren Klaff. He would say to you, so I just want to make sure that, you're the right fit for us.
Yeah.
And he asks them questions, make sure that you're the right fit for us. And then he always looks at his watch and says, I've only got another 20 minutes. So he definitely wants to establish a power frame. And I think he's right about this, Shaddi, that there are lots of money people in the world, but there's only one Shaddi. And what he would say if he was on the call, Oren would tell you that you are the prize. And the reason you are the prize is that these REITs don't have a hope in hell of doing a project like this. You know that.
Oh, okay. And building it, you mean?
They don't have a hope in hell of finding it, getting it through site plan, pulling everybody together, doing all the animation cool stuff that we've been talking about, making it work, delivering a cap rate of 6.7%. If they did it, it would take them many times longer than you. It would cost them a lot more than what you can do. And so when you go into this pitch, and I went over this with Jonathan as well, when you go into this pitch session, if you're probably going to end up with 4, 5, or 6 visits, and 1 or 2 of them will probably come to the table, is that you are the prize, not them. There's lots of money out there, but there's not a lot of entrepreneurs out there. You know that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
if you had, 100 high school friends, how many of them are true entrepreneurs, Shaddy?
Yeah,
How many?
that's a good point. That's a good point. I can count them on a hand, possibly two.
Yeah, I mean, you might have somebody who set up a lemonade stand and made $50 one summer,
Yeah,
but that's not being an entrepreneur. I mean,
yeah.
you and I make our living because we're smart and we take risks.
You take risk. Yeah,
And the average, today, this is kind of a distraction, but today, many people say they would like to be an entrepreneur. When I was your age or a bit younger than you are now, everybody wanted to be in a band, right? So when I was growing up, because all the guys I knew, they wanted to be in a band because they got the cutest girls, right?
yeah,
So what are you going to be when you grow up, Bill? Well, I'm going to be in a band. Well, what he was really saying is I'd like to score a few cute chicks. And today, when people are, in their late teens or early 20s, what are you going to be when you grow up? I'm going to be an entrepreneur. That's because they all think they're going to be the next Steve Jobs. And then they try it and they hate it
yeah.
and they fail.
I can see that.
So I bet you out of 100 people that you went to school with that from your school days, there's probably 2 or 3 that really qualify as being bona fide entrepreneurs.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair.
And if you tell me that a consultant is an entrepreneur, I'm telling you that's a BSer.
Yeah, I wouldn't classify that.
Like if I was an engineering
got
consultant
another-
and I designed sewer pipes for you, and I say, look, I can design your sewer connection for King Street, pay me $40,000. That's not really being an entrepreneur. What you do is
No,
being an
I
entrepreneur.
gotta own the company and have someone.
Okay, so can you
show
do a
you,
little bit of homework? See if you can put 5 or 6 names, REITs, where and see if you can establish a relationship with them soon. And it might
Yeah,
just be, hey, listen, I'm an entrepreneur in Kitchener-Waterloo. I've done some neat things. I just would like to get to know the world that you live in a little bit better. Have you got 20 minutes for a phone call? Have you got 20 minutes for a Zoom meeting? And
yeah.
just see if you could get to know 5 or that's exactly what I had Jonathan do.
I
But
think
it has to be you doing it. It can't be me doing it. It can't be your
no,
brother.
I
It
understand.
can't be your
I
sister
think I
Amanda
know.
doing it.
I think I know. I'm a couple calls away from the intro. I think I know how to do that. I would want to establish a framework with Mike in principle at least first.
But these relationships that you could build with 5 or 6 REITs it's not about a project.
Yeah, it's about the relationship. That's fair.
Because if you have, like Jonathan and Wimble have a good relationship now with Dream, this opens the door when this project is finished. Jonathan's still only 42. He's not 82. He
Yeah.
can do a bunch more projects. So it's not just a one-time thing. Okay.
Yeah. Can I show you one other thing before we move on? Can I share my screen in here? So I think you just gotta enable sharing here, Bruce.
I'll do it. Yeah, hang on. Give me a sec.
Sure.
Okay.
So in talking about financing and initial intros and things like that. So I've got up on my screen here. This is the site here.
Yep.
659 to 667.
Yep.
That we're talking
What a
about.
site.
Yeah, this chunk here doesn't show it yet.
Can you go a little slower? Which chunk?
I'm wrapping around it. This is the largest development that's going on in KW right now. It's called Station Park. It's about 1,000 units.
Yeah, you told me about this.
Yeah, but what I wanted to point out is this here.
Yeah.
This building here. The landlord's a company called Perimeter Institute. They're the largest commercial ones in town or in the area.
Yep.
But this building is Google right now.
Yeah.
So they've got about 1,200 employees in here. They're building another 350,000 square feet in this parking lot that Google has.
Incredible.
So we're about to end up with 2,000 plus employees. With our indirect route and sale of North, Google just became a tenant, and we haven't had the intros yet. But once we do, I want to have a chat with them about if there's anything that they want to pre-lease or discuss or commit to or anything like that, just up the street here. Because
So
this is,
can I ask you a question about that?
yeah,
We've talked about maybe, at least a few of these floors might be gigaplexed.
yeah,
I suspect that you could lease whole floors to Google.
yeah. That's what I would like to discuss with.
So I mean, we talked about that. And if you pre-leased, 2 or 3 floors to Google, because I've talked to Toby Lutke at Shopify about this, and you and I've talked about it, that the biggest problem that not just Shopify is having, but Google's having and Facebook is having and others are having, is finding enough places for these people to live.
Yeah.
And if you're going to have, how many Google employees could there be here after this new area is built out?
There's 1,200 in here now. We're going to be 2,500 to 3,000.
So where the hell are they going to live?
Yeah.
So I bet you, I mean, and one thing I wouldn't do, Shaddy, is I wouldn't rent the whole place to Google.
Okay.
Like how many floors is this going to be?
It's 18 right now.
18 floors, 150 units, right?
Yeah.
So about, what is that, 12 or 13 units per floor?
Yeah, yeah. This is before the street frontage on King that we're exploring.
Yeah. But just so if we look at that, say you have 18 floors, don't rent 18 floors to them, because if Google ever twitches, you've got an empty building.
Yeah.
And that actually happened to me. I had a 180,000 square foot building that I rented to Nortel. And then guess what happened to Nortel?
Yeah. So
right?
they took the,
I mean, Google has a tremendous financial capabilities, but 20 years from now, who knows? 10 years from now, I mean, gosh, who knows what's going to happen? So, I'm okay if say Google wanted to lease half the building, so they lease 9 floors from you as places to live.
Yeah.
And if you do the gigaplex thing, they've not only got places to live, they've got places to live and to work in the same building, right?
Yeah.
So if you rented 9 floors to Google, and you're not going to rent it to them for $1,800, trust me on that. It's going to be $2,200-$2,300 a place. And if we had 75 units, think about this: if you have 75 doors that you're renting to Google, and it was $2,200 each, that's $165,000 a month.
Yeah.
For Google, that's like buying a cup of coffee for each employee. It's like zero money to them, right? I mean, they're so enormous. I mean, it's hard to imagine Alphabet being the size that it is. But $165,000. And by the way, that would be a 10-year lease with 2 5-year options, just like in commercial. Shaddy?
Yeah.
It's not a 1-year deal.
And then in something like that, do you just escalate by what the landlord and tenant board dictates annually, or how do you?
Well, I think I could be wrong about this, and you need to consult a lawyer. And again, I'm just a lowly engineer, but I think because you're dealing with a commercial entity like Google, I don't think you're constrained by the Landlord-Tenant Act.
Okay.
I could be wrong about that. So what you could do is you could put in, we're going to increase it by the consumer price index plus 0.5%. I've done deals like that with on residential, but with commercial entities. So I do think that it will not be covered by the Residential Tenancy Act. But again, you have to check that, make sure. But I would put in the the consumer price index plus 0.5 point for you. Indexed every year, because you don't know, we could get inflation, and inflation could go back to 8 or 9 or 10 or 11% one day. I mean, right now our economy is so unpredictable. If anybody tells you, Shaddy, they know what's going to happen in 6 months, nobody knows. I don't know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think you have to. That would be a fantastic thing, and that would, in terms, imagine if you did 9 floors at $2,200 a month, plus a CPI plus 0.5 point with Google, the REITs it wouldn't be 5 REITs lining up at your door, there'd be 20 of them.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
You're way ahead of me. So the other thing is too, that because you only have half of them, it means the other half, just in case anything happens to Google, you know, you won't end up with an empty building.
Yeah.
But you understand, 10-year lease.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
And 2 5-year options. Have you talked to the Google people yet?
No, we haven't had that intro yet. Their dust is still kind of settling over there. We've got the one pager to assign the lease. Or actually it's a 2 or 3 page document that we're going through and the lawyer's going to go through, but haven't had the intro yet. I've met the guy in town who runs the whole Google operation. I don't know him well. Could find my way to him easy enough, but I figured a warm intro once we're landlords and sitting down would be a little easier conversation. His name's Stephen Woods.
Yeah, I think you mentioned him in an email. Well, I think that'll be great. And again, you want to do the Oren Claff thing. In other words, you want to seduce them, right?
Yeah.
You know, you show a little bit of this, then a little bit of this, you know, and you know, you get them into the water up to their ankles and then up to their waist, and the next thing you know, they're swimming with you. You understand?
Yeah, I get it.
Slow striptease.
Yeah.
Make them feel like you're the prize, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Because these people from America, from the United States, you know, they're all well trained. You know, they know how to make you feel small. You got to stop that in its tracks.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is really exciting. Fantastic. Yeah, I suspect, Shaddi, that this project will be really special. And I want you to think of every relationship, whether it's with Google or with any of these REITs that we've been talking about for the last hour, that these are long-term relationships you want to nurture.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not a one-time thing.
To that point, and just before we move on, so I scrolled out here, you can see where 659 King is. This parcel up here.
Is that your industrial building?
Yeah, that's where Google is now. So
wow.
That's about 5 acres, which is the potential multi-tower one in the future. So this is a 93,350 square feet.
Yeah.
And then we own this one as well as 10,000. So YMCA tenant,
yeah.
Google/North tenant, one other industrial tenant, and our offices in the front here.
Where is that building where you're building the Shaddilac spaces?
I zoomed out too far here. So I head down. This is Weber Street here that we're running down. We're heading into Kitchener here.
How far away is it? I mean, in travel
That's a 7-minute drive. It's this building.
It's not
down.
far.
No. So that's it. Kitchener Waterloo. You're 20 minutes from one end to the other.
Yeah, it's not far. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. And
what
then
a great town.
Interesting enough, just over here. So this is a little 6-plex here that I bought last February. This is the Schneider's meat. Old Schneider's meat processing plant, which is a very large project that was bought by Andrin. No, sorry, not Andrin. Oh my God, I know the owner, Jamie Critch, Auburn Developments, out of London. So one of the probably larger ones in Ontario, but they've got, I think, 7 towers planned in this area here.
7 towers?
Yeah.
It's incredible what's going on there. How you've told me this before. How many people live in Kitchener Waterloo?
Kitchener Waterloo is about 500,000. If you add in Cambridge, you're 700,000 or so.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be long before you're bigger than Ottawa.
What's Ottawa right now?
1 million.
Okay.
And if you include Gatineau, it's 1.3.
Okay. So we hopped over it here, but go back to so 659 here. This is Mike's site. King and Victoria here.
Yeah, see it?
From this stretch, we run straight down. This is going through downtown Kitchener.
Right.
We follow the arrow. This is One Queen right here.
Wow.
Follow the arrow down to Cedar. That stretch of King, there is $1.1 billion in active building permits right now.
It's
Mostly
incredible.
condo and apartment.
And you have so much, your weather is so much better than Ottawa. You don't have much snow, do you?
We get snow, but not Ottawa snow. We get snow in cold weather, but
Yeah, but
not,
it's nothing like you get here.
yeah.
Wow,
Yes.
it's fantastic. No, I think Waterloo, Kitchener-Waterloo will overtake Ottawa. You know, Ottawa getting us 1.3 million, so you got a ways to go, but I think you're growing faster. And I think the people in Kitchener-Waterloo are a little bit more with it than the folks in Ottawa. You know, we've been sucking at the government's teat for, you know, 150 years plus. And so, you know, the developers in Ottawa, you know, if they were on the call with us today, you know, you would hang up. After half an hour, you say, well, okay, guys, bye. And you just click out of the Zoom meeting because,
Oh, really?
you know, they're nice guys, they are, but they build terrible, you know, products. I mean, they build really, really, you know, just the most unimaginative blocks of offices that are just horrible. That, by the way, after 30 years, they pretty much they're finished. They build just terrible. The air is bad. The lighting is bad. The layout is bad. You know, the floor to slab distances are short because they're cheaping out on the buildings. They bring curtain wall down to grade so that when you walk by, it's just a blank wall. And it's dark in Ottawa, as you know. We're further north than you guys are, and we build terrible, absolute crap houses. We build crap subdivisions. We have new subdivisions in Ottawa, Shaddi, where they will build 3,000 houses in a row on these horrible curvilinear streets with, you know, P-loops and dead ends, without a single shop, without a single office. Or you can't go to the doctor, you can't go to the dentist, you can't get a popsicle for your kid. We build the worst form of urban blight, all of it car dependent, because the suburbs are so bad that you run a bus there once every hour and a half. And if you don't run buses every 15 minutes, if you run them every hour and a half, you might as well not run buses at all, because nobody's going to, would you want to wait at -30 an hour for a bus outside? There's no, I mean, we built absolutely terrible crap in Ottawa, and you know, I'm not pulling any punches, but I tell people this, you know, and that makes me less than popular in some circles. All right, so can we move on now?
Yeah.
Okay, I think so. We know where we're going next on that stuff. I sent you. I did. I don't know if you saw this, but I did a complete rebate. Do you mind stop sharing for a second?
Yeah, sure.
So I did a complete rewrite of this ad. So your first ad was industrial space for lease, and your second was industrial storage for lease.
So I'm glad you had the first one saved, because I didn't actually. I did it off the top of my head in Kijiji, and once the ad came down, it was gone.
So I'm very good at filing things. So the first ad was good, and the second was absolutely terrible. So I rewrote. I don't know if you had time to look at it, but I rewrote it.
Yeah, I did. I keep thinking about the branding on it. I can't get my head wrapped around it, or wrapped around having my name in it. I think that's just who I am. Not that that's the main part in here, but just as a.
No, I understand that, but I do want you to give it a name.
Yeah. Okay.
Because this is an important model, I think, for you. You know, if you're going to continue to grow, you're going to need to plant some seeds, right? And so anyway, I do like, I like this Workspaces. I happen to like Shaddilac, but anyway, give it a different name, but I think you keep Workspaces, and I do like the tagline, making things happen.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I wrote, are you an entrepreneur a gigpreneur, an artpreneur, renovator, contractor, small business owner, a fabricator, electrician, plumber, HVAC installer, lathe operator, woodworker, cabinet maker, crafter, or maker of things. Do you need easy, affordable, easy access, affordable industrial workspace to grow your enterprise? Do you want to be part of a community of like-minded business people who support each other and trade with each other? Then join Shaddilac, or whatever you call it, and be part of something special. And I would break the price down into 2 or 3 different components. So what I said was, here's your base rent, $775 a month. And then you have to budget another a bit of money, $95 for electricity and utilities, and $75 for internet and Wi-Fi. So you can get to your $900 or $950 a month, but I would break it down. So you're not doing a bait and switch here, Shaddi, but you're breaking it into components so people know that they're getting value.
Yeah.
Parking is free. I think parking is free.
Yeah.
And then you can add them to the building directory for free. You should have a directory outside. You know, you've got Firestone cabinets and Fahel, you know, or maybe Fahel cabinets and Firestone paddle tennis rackets. I don't know. I used to make paddle tennis rackets.
Oh, okay.
So you have a directory. I think that's useful. It says here, your landlord pays all other costs, including property taxes, so they know they don't have to worry about anything else. Try it for just 3 months and see what you think. Everyone needs a side hustle. Here's something, and I would come up with a premium for everybody who you know, who rents from you. I have a little bit of a storage business, and I give everybody a premium rather than I don't give them free rent. What I do is I give them a premium. So my wife and I, when somebody signs up in our storage building that we own, we give them a $25 gift certificate to Farm Boy.
Okay.
Do you know what Farm Boy is?
Yeah, we have them here as well.
Yeah, everybody seems to like it. So if you sign up, you know, you rent one of our storage containers in one of our buildings, you pay, I think, $165 a month. The minimum lease term, I think, is 3 months. And then you get in the email a $25 e-gift certificate. You can redeem at Farm Boy. People appreciate that more than a free month's rent.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Do you understand? So I put in here, you know, that I would do some coaching for them, but this was just a placeholder for you.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah. No, I do like that.
But give them some kind of a premium, because there's a thing called a reciprocity reflex.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, probably I gave you a free book back in the day when I first met you. Hey, read one of my books. Oh, thank you so much, Prof. Bruce. And then next thing you know, we're doing a little bit of coaching, right?
Yeah.
So if you give them you know, there must be a really great, you know, is there a nice pub with music close to this industrial building?
Reasonably close. Yeah, there's a great little wood-fired pizza place up the street, actually.
Yeah, so you just go to see them and say, listen, can I give out $25 gift certificates? You know that you can't have gift certificates redeemed for alcohol, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can't give out alcohol. Don't give out alcohol.
Yeah.
Or weed, you know, that there's just way too much liability. And I think it's illegal, actually. So don't do that. So one of my clients, she had a co-working space downtown, and about half of her space was empty. And she came to me for a little bit of coaching, and it turns out that she owns a pub 2 blocks away. So she gave out $25 gift certificates 4 times a year, every quarter, to go and eat at her pub. It's a wonderful pub. They've got great food, great music, and nice beer. But again, it was only redeemable for food, not alcohol. And lo and behold, in the next 6 months, she filled up.
Wow.
And, you know, a $25 gift certificate to go to her pub doesn't cost her $25. It costs her about $10.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, it's about 40% for the cost of the food. And then, of course, the place gets busier. And nobody spends $25. They bring their wife or their girlfriend or their boyfriend, and they spend $50. And then I just
Yep.
put in some other stuff, newly built industrial storage units ranging from 550 to 2750, move in ready August 1. And I I rewrote it. Okay. So it's a little bit more catchy.
Yeah, that looks good.
How's it going?
There's been, so I posted it, I realize now in the wrong section of Kijiji that I did on the first one, and I promoted the ad. Haven't had a ton of replies and was wondering what the heck was going on. And then I got your email and realized what I've done here. So I've had a couple tours. When we get off the phone today, I want to run over there, and the photos that I had posted were from Aaron, who's my site super there. And I want to go over and get some proper photos now that we've got some units we've got some taping done that's ready for paint and stuff like that. So I've got to put a little bit more time into it. It's been not an excuse, but it's been a hectic couple weeks. Seems like everything that can come up has at once. You can see over my left shoulder, that hole in the wall up there is from a mixing valve going in our shower, and just everything all popping up at once. So they've moved construction along well. We've actually got some finished boarded units, and now's time to start pushing it a little more
So do you
professionally.
have a professional real estate photographer that you can work
I
with?
don't. We have an SLR camera here, and my Lena, my
Mhm.
fiance's mom, is an amateur photographer as well. I think for the Kijiji purposes, I think this will be sufficient. The lighting's not
So
in yet.
what I do, Shaddy, on every project that I finish for myself and my family is, I mean, whether it's a duplex that we've renovated or some storage units that we've created recently. I have a professional photographer. Her name is Ms. Aubrey. I've forgotten her first name. And she charges me, I think, $150 to go and photograph any project that I've done. So, and her
Okay.
photographs inside, outside, street views. She gives me like the 360 thing for 150 bucks. And we do that before any tenants move in, because tenants are making a mess of it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Whether it's a duplex that you're renting out, some tenants have very nice furniture, but some don't. And so we take a really good, and you'll have those photographs on every property that you own forever. And even old
That's
industrial buildings, when they become vacant, we go in and we clean them. We make, even if it's just old concrete, they're clean, clean, clean. There are no ceiling tiles that are broken. There are no lights that are out. There's no holes in the wall. Everything is, we have some buildings that are built in the 50s, but they're still useful and people seem to like them.
hmm
But we would take pictures of professional pictures. Like if I were to take it with my iPhone 6, it would be just terrible.
yeah.
But for 150 bucks, or if you have a good camera and you have somebody who knows what they're doing, you have those photos, forever if you're any good at, keeping your files straight and backing them up. And they're really worth their weight in gold.
hmm
So, even if we have an apartment that's becoming vacant and the tenant is messy, some have a cat and they have
Yeah.
other, they're just messy. You can't go in there and show it really well. But we have the original pictures of when it was newly renovated, and we can put those on Kijiji.
hmm That
So
makes sense.
professional pictures, or at least really good ones that you can do with your own camera, that you should do
Yeah.
on every project.
No, that's,
Commercial, residential, institutional, doesn't matter.
we
Those are
do
going to be really
have
worth
a
the
guy
while.
that I can call for that I haven't used in the past, but
But I mean, I'm sure they don't charge very much. They charge the same, 100 to 150 bucks. And
yeah,
these people are fantastic.
yeah,
It's an art.
yeah. I know what you mean.
All
You're
right.
right. Grateful
So
for it.
can you give me an update on One Queen?
Yeah, we're moving along, still in construction. There's always been kind of phase one and phase two. Phase two was where there was an existing restaurant tenant who's moved out of there now.
Yeah.
Just finished demo on that. Got our first construction draw today, actually. So we're moving forward with it. We are budgeting out. So third floor is leased. And then we have 1/3 of the first floor is leased. So we're budgeting out finishing the second floor as office space and kind of keeping that back pocket if we need to
Right.
do something turnkey or explore the concept we talked about a couple of months ago about the day of the week lease. But right now, continuing to build. It's dead in town right now with leases, as I'm
Yeah,
sure you
you
can.
hired a national team. Who did you hire?
Not a national team, but someone who has access to national tenants. So it's CMA. So CMA used to stand for City Management and Appraisals. And his name is, there's two CMAs in town. They were partners and they split. So it's Neil Cable is the broker of record there.
And did he put it on MLS?
Yeah, it should be up there.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be on MLS. He's
So
the one who brought the Tim Hortons tenant that we have there.
excellent.
Right?
But just a question for you. Is Neil offering the outside broker a commission on this?
Yeah, it is. So we're 8 and 4. So we increased our commission 8% of the first year, 4% of the other, the remaining. And I believe I have to check our documents, but I believe that's a 50-50 cooperating split.
So can you just check that, Shaddi? Just make a note to yourself to check it. Some of these brokers now are trying to double end everything, and they're excuse me for saying, but they're screwing their clients.
Yeah,
And
no,
CBRE, Barnaky, many of these big commercial brokerages are now refusing to pay the cooperating broker anything. And they're saying, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think we did outline, if you double ends it, it's not the full 8 and 4, it's split from there.
That's fine. That's fine. But what I'm really concerned about is that they're offering something to the outside broker, because even lowly residential realtors, I say lowly in quote marks, almost all of them have 2 or 3 commercial clients. You know, if you've been in this business any length of time, you know somebody who has a fitness studio, you know somebody who's a registered massage therapist, you know somebody who's a physiotherapist. And one of the questions you asked me in your agenda was, how the hell are you going to, lease up 1 Queen Street when the market is dead?
Yeah.
And I sent you back an email that in Ottawa, I think we have close to a record number of sublets. And so one of the things that I think you should talk to Neil about is you ask Neil, make sure that he's offering outside brokers, some commission, so that they have an incentive to bring a tenant, a physiotherapist or a registered massage therapist or whatever. And the second thing is that you want to try and test your prospective tenants as to how resilient they are in the face of COVID-19, and also in the face of internet competition from companies like Amazon and Wayfair. And so we've talked about this before, until a dentist, until the internet can fix your teeth, or the internet can do some sort of physiotherapy, those businesses are very resistant to the internet. Mm-hmm. And because we're now, I think almost all of the province now is at stage 3, the RMTs and the physiotherapists and the medical clinics are now going to reopen. They have to be very careful.
Yeah.
One of the guys I coach owns a pizza shop. In fact, I have 2 guys who own pizza shops, one in Ottawa and one in Alberta, and they're pretty successful. And it was interesting to me, because I've been coaching them as we go through this COVID-19 thing, that both of them have pivoted to curbside pickup and also home delivery, and their sales are record high.
Really good.
Record high. So I wanted to show you something just as I got ready for this session with you. Can you see my screen okay?
Yep.
Let me just I'll make it a little bigger. So I know you do a lot of this in Kitchener-Waterloo, but what we've been doing during the COVID-19 crisis, and this was back in February, March, when I was doing a bit of coaching with these guys, was they were preparing back in February, well, probably more likely March, to turn their restaurants inside out. We anticipated, I thought we were going to have to go home and stay there for 2 weeks to a month. It turned out to be, you know, much longer than that. I didn't anticipate that, but we did anticipate, I did anyway, that it would become more and more difficult to, you know, to have face-to-face meetings or sit in a pizzeria and have a pizza. So we were preparing for that. And even you'll be interested in that. Even some of the lawyers, I coach a few lawyers, are now building in front of their buildings patios like this. And the first lawyer, it was my lawyer who did it, Steve Shepard. He's a young man and wonderful real estate lawyer. Oh my gosh, he's just a fantastic young lawyer. Best real estate lawyer in Ottawa, I think. And I just helped him last year buy a new building. And I said, I want you to put a patio up front. He said, well, I'm not a restaurant, I'm not a pub owner. I said, Steve, this was last year, nothing to do with COVID-19. I said, imagine if I could come over and visit with you. And instead of being in a, you know, a typical office, you know, we spend enough time in our offices, for Christ's sake. How about if we could sit in a patio, have a cup of coffee, have a tea, you know, have a muffin, and sign whatever documents, have a meeting, whatever. He said, oh, I really like that idea. So he hired a former student of mine, Laura Sen. She's an architect I taught 20 years ago. And she's been designing patios for, not just for restaurants, patios for law offices. This one on the right here is for, this one here, if you can see where my cursor is. This is for a hair salon.
Oh, wow, okay.
And what was interesting about, you know, architect hair design is they brought their chairs outside. You could get your hair done outside. You could, you know,
really?
Yes, they did the coloring and everything in good weather months. You're not in Ottawa, you don't, you know, but this particular one that you're seeing here on the right-hand side of the screen is Toronto. So Laura has been doing this for clients of mine all across Canada and the United States. I don't know if you can see this one here, but this one here is actually on wheels. And she designed it, this one on the left. And they wheel it into place in the spring, and then they wheel it onto a flatbed late fall and take it away.
Okay.
So
the whole setup, the whole patio setup, the whole deck out there.
This thing here, can you see this thing here?
Yeah.
That's the one that's on wheels. So and it fits on a flatbed, and it rolls off and rolls back on. So one of the things that I think you could do, and I wanted to show you a couple other things, is these are pictures. This one here is in Edmonton, where the entire city of Edmonton is now going to extend the patio season through their winter.
Oh, okay.
And the way they're doing it, this is a picture here. If you can see this picture here, that's what they're doing in Edmonton. Whole blocks of it now are being converted so that you can sit outside. It's nice and warm. They've got these, what are these things called again?
I don't know.
Oh, there's a word for it. I can't remember. And the scenes that you see here, top right here, and then on the left-hand side, that's Copenhagen. And they have very tough winters there too.
Okay.
So something else for you to consider is to look for businesses that are internet proof and do whatever you can to turn your building inside out. And whether they're offices on the 3rd floor or the 2nd floor, or the retailers or quasi-retail at grade level, try and with the permission of the city, of course, do something that will take advantage of a 12-month season.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
We are seeing more patios popping up in streets, kind of being closed, creating little village feels, but nothing extending into the winter yet.
But look at this thing in Copenhagen, and look at this thing in Edmonton's winter is much worse than yours.
Yeah. I was surprised when you said Edmonton for that reason.
Yeah, and I'll see if I can play this for you. I'm not guaranteeing it will play, but I'm trying. I'm not sure it's going to work. Let me see if I can put it on YouTube. Okay, hang on a sec. So I'll share my other screen with you.
Sure.
You'll get a kick out of this. So this is Pat Kerr. Patrick is my daughter Rachel's fiance. They were supposed to get married next month, but unfortunately, that's been postponed until July of next year.
Yeah, we were supposed to be this upcoming weekend, actually.
I'm sorry to hear that. So anyway, he's a wonderful young man. I love him. I said, I love you as a son, but I'll love you even more as a son-in-law. He's a wonderful guy. The only thing I don't like about him is he's a Maple Leaf fan.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, you can see up here, he's got his Maple Leaf hat. And by the way, I am absolutely going to cheer for the 6 Canadian teams in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I think we have some teams, Toronto one of them, Edmonton another, that are a legitimate threat to win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, if Toronto gets their act together, and hopefully this little reset does that for them.
Well, Toronto's very unpredictable, but they have the talent.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to show you this, and it's relevant to your discussion here. The only way to windproof our cities is not to put up, any kind of a barrier. I'm going to show you this. This is a little experiment that Pat helped me with in Picton, Ontario last year.
Okay.
Hey, it's going good. So where are we today?
We are at Picton Beach.
Yeah, did you have a good day so far?
Yes, it's pretty nice, a little bit chilly.
Yeah, a little windy, right?
Yes, very windy.
Okay, so Patrick, you're going to hold this thing up a little bit higher and off to that way a little bit. Okay, everybody can see that we're down here at the beach. Here's Picton Beach, and not far away. And it's pretty windy today. And what I wanted to show people is the only real way to create a windbreak is simply to plant a forest. If you want streets in Canada during the winter to be more walkable, artificial windbreaks are not going to work, but trees will. So Patrick, can you just move back a little bit? And I'll come with you just so you can see. So Patrick, you're now behind one tree, correct?
Yes.
And what's the wind like there? Has it dropped?
Yes.
Right. So I would guess that over here where I am now, the wind speeds are about 15 to 18 knots. What do you think you're experiencing there? Yeah, that's what I would think. So guys, when you want to create, when there's Google Sidewalk Labs, Alphabet Sidewalk Labs in Toronto or anywhere else, if you want to create a street in Canada, in Sweden, in Russia, in any northern country, if you want to truly do that, you have to create streets and the streetscape with vibrantly dense trees. The deer know this. They've known it for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. And where do you think the deer go in the middle of the winter when the winds are howling over the plains? Where do they go? Why is that? Thank you very much, Patrick.
Now I know it's kind of a corny video.
Oh, you get the point though. You can see the handkerchief.
Today, 1079, Ottawa's new.
Sorry, I apologize. Go ahead, Shaddi.
Yeah, I was just saying you can see the handkerchief kind of reduce when he steps back behind there. That's neat.
So the reason I showed you that is that I think the future of office buildings, you've heard me say it till I'm blue in the face, is not to be office buildings at all. I think they're going to be live, work, shop, make, play, create places. I think we're going to do a lot more outside. The Europeans are way ahead of us. Have you ever been to Italy?
No, not yet. It's on the list.
Those people live outside. I lived in Italy when I was a boy, and children 10, 11, 12, 9, 10, 11, 12, they're playing the piazzas. The parents are sitting there having dinner, drinking wine. They're there until 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night in the summertime. Everyone lives outside. The northern countries like Scandinavia are leading the way and showing how we can coexist with our winters. We are spending far too much time in our homes, even before COVID-19, watching Netflix or Prime, and we should be outside more and socializing more. So I believe office buildings are dead, and the COVID-19 is the final nail in the coffin. And that what I'm encouraging you to do every time I speak to you practically, and probably I should stop being a broken record on this, is to try and make your buildings really stand out and turn them to some extent inside out. The other thing that I think you should do, and you should talk to Neil about this, is you should be looking for those uses that are a family. In other words, like one of my clients is building a health hub. That's what he calls it, a health hub.
Yeah.
And the health hub will have the physiotherapist, the registered massage therapist, the spa, the medical, the drop-in medical clinic, the chiropractor, the eye doctor, the ear, the guys who do the hearing tests. I mean, he's, and he's combining it with, great outdoor cafe space, and a lot of the concepts that I'm talking about. So, it is, if you can get a few of those, and the rest pile in. And, and the next thing you know, the lawyers want to be there, and the accountants want to be there, and the other professionals want to be there because it's a cool place to be and there's lots of traffic. So that's
it's a tough,
sorry, go ahead.
I understand what you're saying, and the mind is going for sure. It's in hindsight, probably wouldn't have gone after this building had we known what was coming. But there's parking around the building, but there's no parking with it, and I think that becomes limiting. We knew from the beginning with things like lawyers and health and things like that. The thing that we targeted is the area that's probably the hardest hit, which is brick and beam tech space, and those are the guys that are living and walking to work and things like that. So.
Well,
I understand.
You can always convert it to microsuites, and if you have to, and there'll be plenty of demand for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's happening with 139 Beverly?
If I can, there's one I wanted to run by about the emerging market thing. So Beverly is in.
It's your agenda that runs this thing.
Yeah, it's in. Assuming we wrap up at around 5. Is that?
Yep, that's right.
So 139 is in their court. A follow-up call this week, but that one is a bit slow moving. So the last point, the emerging markets, I've actually got a book that I'm starting to read on that, but high level, continually kind of bidding against the same people, some with deeper pockets and even REITs and behind them in the multifamily space here. And then I'm kicking around. I'm also following, and this is kind of based on what the same appraiser I'd mentioned had spoken about, but closer to the border, there seems to be some emerging markets or potential there. And then I'm looking a little bit at Sarnia, as I'd mentioned. If I can share the screen again for a second, I want to show you the one and why here.
Okay. Was this 102 Dawson?
No, 102 Dawson is a little infill one around the corner from where I am right now. Actually, it'd be a single family tear down, build semis.
I have it on my screen. I'm looking at it. So that's not Sarnia.
No, that one's not Sarnia. So this is. Can you see this?
Yep.
Yeah. So this is Sarnia. And if I go 145 Wellington Street, Sarnia. So at a high level, I've got to go down and look around in the area, spend some time with my old roommate who's a realtor down there. But kind of shitty little building here. But when you scroll around, there's apartments beside it. There's a park across the street from it, and it doesn't look like a horrible part of town. When you look at the economics of it, I mean, $495, I believe it could be picked up for less than that. It's about 10,000 square feet. Even $450, you're 45 a foot that you'd be paying for the property there. If there is actually a plan that it can be converted to 12 to 14 units multifamily, I'm just looking at that, and it's that would be at 450, that would be 12 units, you're 37,500 a door. That's almost that's pretty much what land goes for in KW, let alone the building that's on it already. So exploring, I got to understand the economics of and the underlying economics of a city like Sarnia or any other ones. But I'm starting to look outside of KW because For the reasons, some of the reasons I pointed out on King Street in the strong tech sector, 2 universities, proximity to Toronto. We're seeing a lot of money coming in from Toronto. It's driving the price up on everything. And
So can
then,
you stop sharing the screen just for a minute?
yep,
And I'm good. I put it on my screen. I'll tell you why in a second. So this is Wellington.
yeah,
So first of all, I want to tell you I have a client based in BC who is investing in Sarnia.
okay,
Um, and um, and I really like Sarnia.
okay,
I really like it, but with one proviso. The proviso is, if you're going to invest in Sarnia, then you're going to focus on Sarnia, as well as, of course, Kitchener and Waterloo.
yeah,
The people who make the most money in real estate are people who are not in 10 cities.
okay, yeah,
Too many. You will drive yourself crazy if you're. How long does it take to drive from Kitchener and Waterloo to Sarnia?
2 hours.
Yeah, so that's manageable. Do you remember Olympia and York, the big developers based in Toronto?
No, I don't.
Well, there was the Reichman family, and they were very, very successful in the 1980s and the 1990s. They were the most successful developer in Canada and one of the most successful in the world. They were worth 10 or 11 billion dollars back then.
Okay,
And they decided to have a second location, and that second location was New York City. So they went and they bought a portfolio of buildings in New York City, which was an even bigger success than their Toronto based. So now they're in 2 cities, Toronto and New York, and you can get from Toronto to New York and New York to Toronto on a private plane in 55 minutes.
yep,
You know, then they wouldn't take commercial, you know, they would fly, you know, they had beautiful jets. Then they decided to open a third location in the city in London, in England. They went broke.
okay.
So the project was called Canary Wharf. And
That rings a bell for some reason that you may have shown me that one before.
I may have, but let me just, this is really important that you brought it up, and I'm glad you did. So, you know, real estate everywhere is a local business. Like, you know Kitchener and Waterloo a lot better than I do, but I know Ottawa a lot better than you do.
Yeah,
So if you were to come to Ottawa, you'd have to learn a bunch of new stuff. When they jumped from Toronto and New York to London, they built beautiful, beautiful buildings at Canary Wharf. But they missed a few things. Number one, the tube in London does not go, or did not at that time go to the wharf. It did not. So all of a sudden, all the people that they wanted, the big banks, the merchant banks, and you know, these huge companies couldn't rent from the Reichmans in Canary Wharf because their employees couldn't get there. And you know, have you ever driven in London? You would never, ever dream of driving across London to go to work.
okay,
You might as well kill yourself first. I mean, it would take you 2.5 hours to get to work. And if you're a rich dude, no rich dude wants to, you know, you're being paid 800,000-900,000 pounds a year, couple million, 10 million pounds a year. You're not spending 4 or 5 hours of your day in traffic. There's just no way. And the other thing they didn't know is that leases in the United Kingdom, office leases are at that time were 25 years. So if I came to you and you were head of you know, a big bank like Deutsche Bank, and I say, hey, listen, I've got this beautiful building. It's, you know, it's 1 million square feet, and you need 500,000 square feet of modern office space, not all these little dinky offices you have all around the old city. You ought to come to Canary Wharf. Somebody like you would say, I'm very interested in it. Oh, but I don't think the tube runs there. Well, yeah, but they promised me someday it'll come. Yeah, someday, right? And then the second thing the guys would say, Deutsche Bank would say, is I've got 20 years left of my lease. You don't mind taking over my existing leases, right? And all of a sudden, Reichman ended up with leases that they couldn't lease, that had 20 years to run, and the lease up for Canary Wharf, instead of being, you know, a couple of years, was likely to take 20 years. So wow. A fantastic company that was just so successful in Toronto and New York completely failed, and they went bankrupt. All right. So if you're going to make a commitment to a second location, I think Sarnia is an excellent choice, in my opinion. I already have a client there, and if I have his permission and your permission, I'll introduce you two guys. He's a really neat guy. He's an engineer like me.
Would love to speak, John.
No, you would really like him, and he's very, very, very particular. He's like you. He wants things, precise and accurate. I mean, he's not a fly, I'm more of a fly by the seat of my pants kind of guy in some ways than he is, and than you are. But so I think you guys would like each other.
What does if you can share, what do you like or does he like about Sarnia? Or, I mean, Sarnia, Windsor, kind of that London Windsor corridor, I guess.
I do think, well, first of all, in terms of recreation, the area is beyond beautiful, right? I mean, you have access to the most beautiful beaches, I think, it's certainly in Ontario, and some of the most beautiful areas in the world, at least for 6 months of the year. And the other thing is that the economy is doing, well, who knows what the economy is doing now, but until COVID-19 hit, the information that Ruben and I have been working on Sarnia, we have a bunch of economic analysis that he has paid for and we've looked at that really showed that Sarnia has promise, and he's been there for now, I think, 3 years.
Okay.
With
that economic analysis, who do you even pay to get something like that?
There's a lot of publicly available information, but in his case, we actually hired, in this case, was a local realtor that I happened to like and he happened to like, who was very plugged in. And most of these local real estate boards have really good research. The local guys really know the market better than, if you find the right realtor, you probably have had that experience. So we had a couple of appraisers talk to us about what they think of the Sarnia market, where it's going, where the strength is, where the weaknesses are. And we had this one realtor that we worked with to help him, in this case, buy his first property there. And he did quite a bit of research too. So the appraisers we had to pay, but the realtor would work for free because he got a commission out of it. But the reports we got from the appraisers, they weren't that expensive. I think one was $3,500 and the other was $2,500. So, it was about $6,000, and they prepared really good reports on the state of real estate in Sarnia for this particular individual. And, and the realtor did some really good work on the demographics and other things that were happening at the time. And he's more of a commercial guy than he is a residential guy. He's a commercial guy.
Okay.
So this building, to me, I think it has tremendous promise. I'm not really keen on just buying property and knocking them down, because to buy a property, knock it down, go through the site plan process, maybe the rezoning process and everything else takes so long and is so expensive.
I was thinking conversion here, just not to cut you off, Bruce, but I wasn't looking at that big of a project to start with in Sarnia.
That's what I was hoping you would say. So let me ask you this question. What is on the second floor of this building? Just office space?
Yeah, so I think it was, I think the owner operated the pharmacy, had some office space upstairs and leased some additional office space. So if you go around the corner, I think if I remember right, there's some windows or a wall of windows and decent parking there.
Wow, look at the size of this thing.
10,000 square feet. Yeah, 5,000 a floor, parking around the back and the side for if you pick it up for $450, it's $45 a foot.
So, and you've got a really cute little park here. So my thought is this, Shaddi. I have a number of clients who are going through the same thing. I think I sent you a write-up I did on a tiny village of Marathon.
Yeah, that rings a bell.
Okay. Yeah. And it was a lady, I've been coaching her for a long time, who bought just about the entire village. I think it has maybe 100 homes, and she owns about 20 or 25 of them. So she doesn't own them, but she owns 20 or 25% of it. And they're all rental properties. And that is what has sustained her. And if you're going to make a commitment to Sarnia, what you're going to do is you're going to create a real focus on Sarnia, just as you have with Kitchener-Waterloo. So what you're going to do is, you and my other client there, is people like you will actually not only buy more property in Sarnia, because you're going to have two focal points, not 10. Okay, and you'll animate not only your properties, but over time you will teach the entire town how to improve their properties. And what Brenda did in this little village of Marathon, after she bought 20 or 25 of these properties and she started to, paint them and started to animate them and the kinds of stuff that we've talked about, is that she would talk to her neighbors, and her neighbors said, well, oh, you have an apartment in the basement there? Can I do that? Brenda would say, sure, and we can bring more people here and we can do all kinds of cool things. So she would start to actually teach the gospel of Prof. Bruce to other people there. And so the whole village lifted off.
Okay.
And so her property values, I don't know, they haven't tripled, they've quadrupled, I think. So because Sarnia is small enough that you and maybe this other individual I coach and maybe a few others that will come can move the market, but you don't want to move the market until you bought a footprint.
Yeah, a few of them.
So on this one here, what I would suspect you could do is this second floor could be micro suites, but I would suspect you would want to keep at least one of these spaces commercial.
Okay.
Do you remember the Edgar Cafe?
Yep.
So I'm just going to show it to you just to refresh your memory. Edgar. There we are.
Yeah, I remember this one.
You remember this guy here, right? So there's the Edgar Cafe. It's a tiny little building. I'm going to go back to the street view. It's better. Let's see if I can grab that street view just to remind you. Where is it? Here it is. So what I would do with your building, just because it's quick, is here's the hairdresser, right? Susie Mendoza. Yeah. And next to it is little Edgar Cafe. It's 650 square feet. Remember we talked about that? It's got the little patio here,
revenue share,
the overflow here, the percentage rent here. It's phenomenal. And then you've got the apartments up there. I think there's 4 of them upstairs. So what I would probably do, this could be just a friggin' gold mine, is you could do the same thing here. You look at how much room you've got for the patio here.
Yeah.
You could have the Edgar Cafe. You probably have the Edgar Cafe here. You have a patio here. You have the hairdresser or the registered massage therapist, or for that matter, a storefront lawyer here, and you build a patio for him too. So you would rent these 2 spaces commercial. And there's something else you would do here at Shaddi. Because it's so deep and it's so big, I don't know if I could see it here, is the cafe only needs to probably, here, right, at the most, right, down to halfway. So you know what I would do with the rest of the ground floor? Come on, you can guess.
I'm gonna guess Shaddilac units.
So upstairs, you've got 5,000 square feet of micro suites. And don't forget, the micro suites that UBC created were 145 square feet. You would not go that small. But let's say you went with 350 square foot micro suites, you'd have like at least 10 or 12 of them up there.
Yeah.
And then you'd have 2 commercial units, one for a hairdresser, one for a registered massage therapist, one for whatever. And all around the circumference, because all of these windows could be doors, right?
Yeah.
You're going to have maker spaces.
Yeah.
You are going to make a killing with this. Now, don't tell your realtor friend and don't tell the seller. But in my opinion, I would friggin' buy that thing.
I think I gotta get down to Sarnia. It's been on the list, and I think
this is such. I'm telling you, I really like Sarnia. The first name of my other client, based in BC, but he's active in Sarnia. His first name is Ruben, and he's a professional engineer. And just keep that in your mind. But if you do make a commitment to Sarnia, then I will introduce you with his permission, and you 2 guys will hit it off. And he's in commercial. He will not be competing with you because he's got a very specific commercial niche. But you 2 guys could team up, and you could just do really good stuff.
I've been following it for since the end of last year. Yeah. As I started seeing price per door, getting way out of what you have to pay for a door here with your minimum down payment is not going to cash flow today. And I need these units to cash flow as I continue to grow them.
Well, think about the ground floor, a hairdresser and an Edgar Cafe. and a bunch of your maker spaces, which you're going to be an expert. I wish you would call them Shaddilacs, but the Shaddilacs and the 2 little commercial units with the really nice patios there, a park across the street. And if you do the patios, you're going to do them so that they're good 12 months of the year.
Yeah.
And you're going to plant trees. You're going to plant, hang on, you're going to plant those trees so that my son-in-law can visit in the middle of the winter and not be blown over, because you can see he's built like this. I'm a little bit sturdier, and then upstairs, maybe as many as a dozen microsuites. You will make so much money out of this building, and then what you're going to do is you're going to go buy 10 more of these buildings, because you will get when we do the cap rates together, Shaddi. I'm excited about this. You can tell when we do the cap rate on this, I'll bet you it's 14 or 15%, maybe even a bit higher. And when you get 14 or 15% cap rates, and we could get it valued at maybe 4.5 to 5%, then a year from now, you're going to refinance. You take out $500,000 tax-free cash, and you go buy a bunch more and do it exactly the same. You do that 10 times, man, you will make a shit ton of money. Excuse my language.
What if I know guerrilla math here, but if you had to put a hard cost number on a conversion from something like that without seeing it in a city that you've never been in, what?
I can tell you that it's costing us, me and my wife, because we do these microsuites, it's costing us $40,000 a microsuite.
Okay.
That's what it's costing us to convert. We're converting a bunch of buildings now, and I can tell, and that's furnished, by the way. So we are furnishing them, and we're putting them into the medium-term rental market. I'm not saying you would do that, but my wife and I don't really like the short-term rental market. I never did, because Airbnb is just way too much work.
Yeah.
But the 30, 60, 90, 180-day medium-term rentals furnished are really good.
Okay, so what kind of target market with that? 30 to 120 days? What?
So in Ottawa, we target people, tech workers. They come and work for Shopify. They do a specific project for 3 months, 6 months. And some of them, I got to tell you, we put them on the short-term rental, medium-term rentals. Some of them come for 60 or 90 days. We have one in one of our units. He said, I'm only going to be here for 98. No problem. And instead of getting, for that particular microsuite, we would have gotten about $1,300 or $1,400. Furnished medium-term rentals are about $2,100.
Wow. Okay.
So, and that's a significant jump from $1,300 to $2,100 for us. So we rented it to Mike. There's just one of the units, and he's been there 9 months. The project, you know what tech projects are like. They're never friggin' finished. So he just keeps renewing. I said, fine. So even though, he's on a medium-term rental with us, and he's paying $2,100, and I think we could get on the next one when it comes up, I think we can get as much as $2,500 for it. And it's only 400 square feet.
Wow.
It's a little 1-bedroom microsuite, 400 square feet. We're getting $2,100 for it, but when it comes up for renewal, again, a lot of these medium-term rentals are wonderful to have. So in Sarnia, for example, people will come, especially in the summertime, for medium-term rentals furnished. But and we would not do all of the units in medium-term rentals, right? We would do about 25%. 20 to 25% of our units are in medium-term rentals to give us a little bit more of a cap rate. And the rest are long-term rentals of 2-year leases.
Okay.
We do not do any residential leases now, almost none, that are less than 2 years.
Oh, okay.
And the reason for that, if you have 352 units and you do 1-year leases, it means you're doing 352 new leases a year. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And, I don't really like doing a lot of work these. I like doing the coaching thing, but I don't want to spend a lot of my time, making license plates, if you know what I mean.
So you don't let them go month to month after the term in it then?
No, we do not. We do not. And if we're renewing for 2 years. And it just reduces our workload tremendously. Instead of having to do 352 leases, we're doing 170 maybe.
Yeah.
And we put in there that we're allowed to increase the rent in year 2 by whatever the legal amount is. Yeah. So we're not missing out on the increase. It's only 1 or 2%, but even 1 or 2% after 10 years adds up to something. So, we are doing 2-year leases on our loan. So we want 75 or 80% in the long-term rental market, gives us that stability, predicted, stable cash flow. And then we get the extra juice from the medium-term rentals. We are getting out of the short-term rental business even before COVID-19.
Yeah, I've never been in it. Don't have
I
much.
don't like it. And if it weren't for my wife, you know, we would never have been in it because she likes, she babies everybody, including me. But this building, you know, my dad, you know, I love my dad and I miss him. If my dad were here, he would say, Bruce, Shaddi, you know, 100 deals go by your desk, let 99 of them go by. You know, it's like girls, you know, there's lots of pretty girls out there, but when that one special one shows up, you go nab her. Now that's very politically incorrect today, but you understand what I'm getting at. This is the pretty girl that I think you should feel. So $40,000 per microsuite furnished, and about 35,000 unfurnished. So ones that are in the long-term rental market, you don't furnish them. But I would count on a $35,000 to $40,000 per microsuite for the retrofit. And then for the maker spaces, you probably know more about that than I do.
Yeah. I still have to round up what exactly that's going to come in at, but we are keeping track of it here. It's the only project going on in that company right now, so it will be easy to track the cost.
I would like to know that, but for the commercial spaces at grade here, you know, it's only going to be a 800 to 1,000 square feet. So you're going to have, say, 2 800 square foot spaces. They're easy to rent. So on the ground floor, you're only taking up maybe 2,000 square feet, including a little bit of circulation space. You're going to have 3,000 square feet of maker spaces. So if you have 400 square feet per maker space, you're going to have 5 or 6 of them. And 12 suites upstairs. I bet you when we do the cap rate, it's 14 or 15%.
Yeah, I haven't done numbers on it yet. I'm very curious now.
I think you should really go grab it. Now, I know we've gone a little overtime, so I got to get going. But before I let you go, on this one here, you know, if I had a choice between spending $650,000 buying this lot or $450,000 on buying the Sarnia property.
Yeah, so the Sarnia one would be one I'd look at doing on my own. This one here, so this is Mike's contact here, who's friend of the family, and the owner of the house passed away, unfortunately.
I saw that in my notes.
He's the one that actually brought it up and brought it to me. I've done a similar one that I bought. I walked it through site plan, got the building permit, and then I sold the project at 98 Strange Street. That was a infill semi. And then there's actually comparables right around the corner from this one that sold last summer, 2 summers ago, for $1,150,000 each. There, so we're looking at it from that point of view, and that would be.
You're actually going to build something and sell it?
Well, I would say the 3 exits would be: 1, assign the sale, because I think we could buy it well. 2, walk it through site plan, permit ready project, and either sell the lots or sell the project. Or 3 would be build it. And
yeah, so when I looked at this site, I don't know what is the zoning here?
It's R4, so you can't go R4 or R5, but you can't go above a duplex on it.
Really?
Yeah, without the variance or zone change.
Yeah, because what I could see on that site would be a gigaplex.
Yeah, no, this is it's an older, you know, beautiful uptown Waterloo neighborhood. This is walking distance to kind of, if you were to walk straight down that laneway, you'd run into the Shopify building.
Okay.
You know, there's that house on the corner is complete now. That's a $1 million+ property.
So what you would do here, you don't have a lot of depth here, you know that.
There's not a lot of depth. There's about almost 86 feet of width.
Yeah, it's not very deep. So would you be able to get a double on here?
Yeah, semis, semi-detached.
So would it be like a double like this or back to back?
No, double in the front.
Double in the front. So if you got a double in the front here, one of the things that I would want you to do is, if you're going to do a high-end design, then I don't know if I have it here. I hope I did put it in here. Where is it? Then I would want you to do something like, I don't know if this is maybe better. You know how I like the brownstone look?
Yeah.
And you know how I like the brownstone look with the garden level apartment?
Yeah.
So if you're going to build something on that site or even get it approved, then what I would do is I would use a classic design of a brownstone. You can see them here. You know what they look like? They're beautiful. And I would make sure you put a garden level suite. You know what that is, right?
Yeah.
So can you imagine if you had a beautiful double here? That's what you call them. Side by side is a double. So you have a Shaddi, you have a double, and each one of those doubles has a garden level suite, like those brownstones I showed you. So
Yeah.
if you want to, you want to be a true disciple of Bruce, you have these beautiful, beautiful, 3 or 4 bedroom, brownstones, and you have a 1 or 2 bedroom lower level suite. So if a rich dude in Waterloo buys it so he can walk to Shopify and work there, he has a place for his adult children to return to that's garden level. He has a place if he needs additional income that he can rent out, or he has a place where he can go when he doesn't want to walk to the office and work at Shopify. He has his own office in the basement or the lower level. That is, and for that, you will get a premium. Clients of mine we call them the income series homes because they have some income built into them. One of my clients here in Ottawa, Phoenix Homes, has started to build them. Their first developer in Ottawa finally to listen to somebody, i.e. me, and they are just selling them as fast as they can build them. And even rich people are buying them because rich people have, sort of elderly mother-in-laws that they have to find a place for, or they have adult children coming home, sometimes girls with their babies, the man's run off or something, and they can live with the family, but not in the same, not living on top of each other. So for multiple generations, for work from home, and also for income purposes, that would go really great here, I think.
Yeah, I like that idea. I wanted the duplex. I was thinking side entrance, but I like that garden suite idea.
Well, they're called garden level suites, and you can see how they work. They're just fantastic. And I mean, just look at this. The rich dudes live here, and down here, that could be your mother-in-law. That could be your adult daughter with her baby coming home to live with you and your wife one day. Hopefully not, or it could just be some people at Shopify who need a place to crash.
Where is there a second means of egress there with those?
I'm sure there is. I suspect out the back.
Okay.
Yeah. They probably have a walkout condition at the back. You remember the manufactured walkout condition we talked about?
No.
I'll see if I can find that on my computer. See if I've got walkout basements here. So here's one. This is a lady who owns this house in LA. Look at her basement. See this?
Yeah, beautiful.
See how she sculpted her backyard?
Yeah.
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah, that's very nice.
And that's her house. She's pretty rich. Here's one that's obviously much cheaper to do. These are manufactured walkout conditions. You create a walkout condition.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, when they do basement apartments, they put the bigger windows in that you have to, if there's a fire, you open like that, and then you have to climb out. To hell with that.
Yeah.
This is way better, Shaddi. Here's another one. Look at that one.
Yeah.
So you can imagine if this were your basement apartment at the front entrance there's nothing to write home about. It's just a little bit lower. You go in and there's your apartment. But the back entrances tend to look like this.
Yeah.
I mean,
nice.
And you can see how much more light and air you get in the basement, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look at these. Even this one here, which is very modest. Look at how much more light you get down here.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Was that helpful?
Yeah.
Okay. So I've got a few things I have to send you. I'll send you the LOI or sample LOI. You do that. And I'll send you the how to pitch anything video training I did. And you got
I'm going
to do too, okay?
Yep. I got some notes here. Thank you for your time.
That was really great. And I will download this to my computer, upload it to YouTube, so you'll have a record of it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Bruce. Have a good week.
You too.